The words hit me like ice water. You've wasted your potential, Marin. My mother's voice cut through the elegant dining room, sharp and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. Which made sense because that's exactly what she was. Dr. Sylvia Keats didn't raise her voice. She never had to. Around us, her colleagues shifted uncomfortably in their seats, suddenly fascinated by their wine glasses. I felt my face burn as every eye in the room found something else to look at. My husband Eli reached for my hand under the table, his calloused fingers warm against mine. Marrying a man with splinters on his hands, she continued, dabbing her lips with a cloth napkin. I gave you every advantage. Private schools, university connections, a future. She paused, her gaze sweeping over Eli like he was furniture someone had left in the wrong room. And you chose this. My mother built her life like she built her reputation. Carefully, deliberately, without room for mistakes. Dr. Sylvia Keats was the kind of woman people whispered about at conferences. Award-winning surgeon. Published researcher. On the board of 3 hospitals and 2 charity foundations. She collected accomplishments the way other people collected stamps. And she raised me the same way. Piano lessons at 5. Debate club at 7. P classes. Leadership positions. College essays edited and re-edit until they gleamed. I wasn't her daughter growing up. I was her project. Her proof that perfection could be manufactured with enough pressure and planning. Love was never part of the equation. Love was messy. Love made you vulnerable. Love made you choose a carpenter over a doctor. Before everything fell apart, I actually liked my life. I ran a small marketing agency from a cramped office in downtown Seattle. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I worked late most nights, helping local businesses find their voice, their story. There was something satisfying about taking someone's dream and giving it shape, making it visible to the world. And when I came home, Eli would be there in our tiny kitchen, sleeves rolled up, flour on his forearms, pulling fresh bread from the oven. Taste this, he'd say, grinning like a kid. Those moments felt more real than anything I'd experienced in my mother's world of polished speeches and networking events. I thought I'd found the balance. Career I was proud of. Man who made me laugh. I thought that was enough. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. My biggest client, a luxury interiors firm called Ashford Design, wanted to talk. Urgent, the subject line said. I smiled, thinking they wanted to expand our contract. I was wrong. The call lasted 3 minutes. We've decided to go in a different direction, the owner said, her voice flat and rehearsed. It's nothing personal. But it was personal. A week later, I ran into someone from their team at a coffee shop. She hesitated, then leaned in close. Your mother called them, she whispered. Said your marriage was affecting your professionalism. That you weren't focused anymore. My stomach dropped. The coffee in my hand suddenly felt too heavy. I set it down carefully, afraid I might throw it. She said what? But the woman was already backing away, apologizing, saying she shouldn't have said anything. I don't remember driving home. One moment I was standing on the sidewalk, numb and shaking. The next I was sitting on our kitchen floor, surrounded by unopened bills and invoices I couldn't pay. The Ashford contract had been 40% of my revenue. Without it, I was sinking. Eli found me there an hour later, still holding an envelope I hadn't opened. He didn't ask questions. He just sat down beside me, his shoulder against mine. She took everything I built, Eli, I whispered. Everything. My voice cracked. I'd worked so hard to prove I didn't need her approval, her network, her version of success. And with one phone call, she'd reminded me how small my world really was. How easily it could all disappear. Eli pulled me close. She took one client, Marin. Not everything. Not you. That night, Eli spread a stack of papers across our kitchen table. Hand-drawn sketches, mostly. Floor plans. Measurements. Little notes in his messy handwriting. I've been working on something, he said quietly. I recognized the drawings immediately. Years ago, before we got married, Eli had dreamed about building sustainable tiny homes. beautiful, modular eco-houses that people could actually afford. We talked about it over wine and late-night conversations, the kind of big ideas you share and then forget when life gets busy. But he hadn't forgotten. "I think we could actually do this," he said, tapping one of the sketches. "Not just me. You know, branding, marketing, how to tell a story people want to be part of." I stared at the drawings. They were rough but beautiful, full of possibility. "Eli, we don't have money for this." He smiled. "We didn't have money when we got married either." I couldn't sleep that night. Long after Eli dozed off beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Finally, I gave up and opened my laptop. The screen's glow felt harsh in the dark bedroom. I clicked through old folders, past client projects and abandoned ideas, until I found it. A folder labeled Rowan Concepts. I'd almost forgotten it existed. Inside were files I'd created 3 years ago, back when Eli first mentioned his dream. Mock logos, color palettes, a rough business plan I'd sketched out late one night, half convinced it was silly. But looking at it now, it didn't feel silly. It felt like a map I'd drawn and then forgotten I'd left behind. The designs were good. The ideas were solid. I'd just been too afraid to believe in them. Too worried about what my mother would say if I left the safe path. Well, the safe path was gone now. Burned down by the woman who'd built it. The next 3 months passed in a blur of work. Not the kind of work that brought in money, not yet. But the kind that builds something real. I redesigned the entire Rowan Concepts brand, refining the logos, writing copy, building a website that looked 10 times more expensive than it was. Eli spent every spare hour in our garage, building prototype furniture and miniature models of the modular homes. We didn't tell anyone what we were doing. No social media announcements. No grand reveals. Just 2 people working quietly, side by side, trying to turn a dream into something tangible. Some nights I wanted to quit. Wanted to send my resume to big agencies, swallow my pride, play it safe. But then I'd look at Eli, covered in sawdust, grinning at some joint he'd finally gotten right, and I'd remember why we started. We weren't building this for my mother's approval. We were building it because it mattered. The email came from someone named August Hale. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But something made me click. "I came across your designs on a forum for sustainable architecture," he wrote. "They're remarkable. I've been looking for partners who actually care about what they're building, not just the profit margins. Would you be open to a conversation?" I read the email 3 times. Then I showed it to Eli. "Could be a scam," he said. "Could be," I agreed. But I wrote back anyway. What did we have to lose? August responded within an hour. He was an architect, he said, recently independent, looking to work on projects that aligned with his values. He'd seen our designs and our mission statement about affordable, sustainable housing. "I like building with people," he wrote. "Not for them." Something about that line made me trust him. We scheduled a meeting for the following week. I had no idea that email would change everything. August Hale was nothing like I expected. I'd pictured someone older, formal, maybe a little pretentious. Instead, he showed up at our house in jeans and a faded jacket, carrying a worn notebook and a smile that reached his eyes. He was our age, maybe a year or 2 older. When Eli showed him the garage workshop, August didn't condescend or critique. He asked questions, real questions, about materials, about costs, about why Eli chose certain joints over others. They talked like equals. Like builders. After an hour, we sat at our kitchen table with coffee and a napkin. August sketched out a quick structure. Equal partnership, 33% each, decisions made together. "I've got some savings to invest," he said. "And connections to suppliers. But I need people who understand that good design isn't just about aesthetics. It's about integrity." He looked between us. "I think we could do something important together." Eli and I exchanged a glance. Then we shook his hand. For the first few weeks, August was just August. Talented, hardworking, easy to collaborate with. We worked out of our garage and a rented office space, drafting plans and building prototypes. Then one afternoon, We were reviewing vendor contracts when August mentioned his father casually. "He's pushing me to come back to his practice," he said, rolling his eyes. "Dr. Nathaniel Hale thinks architecture is a hobby." Froze. My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. "Your father is Dr. Nathaniel Hale." August looked up, surprised. "Yeah. You know him." "Know him." "He was one of my mother's biggest donors. They served on 2 boards together. He was the kind of person she name-dropped at dinner parties." "I know of him," I said carefully. August's expression shifted. "Wait. Your mother isn't Sylvia Keats, is she?" The air in the room changed. Eli looked between us, confused. "You two know each other's families." "Our parents are rivals," August said slowly, something like amusement creeping into his voice. "This just got interesting." 6 months later, we launched Hale Plus Rowan Living. Our first project was a small development outside Seattle. 5 modular eco-homes, built with reclaimed materials and designed to minimize environmental impact without sacrificing style. We weren't trying to compete with luxury developers. We were trying to prove you could build beautifully and responsibly at the same time. The first 2 homes sold within a week. Then a local architecture magazine ran a feature on us, calling our approach the future of conscious living. Orders started coming in. Not a flood, but steady. Real. August handled the technical designs. Eli managed construction and craftsmanship. I ran marketing and client relations, the skills I'd built over years of agency work finally finding a purpose that felt meaningful. For the first time since my mother's sabotage, I felt like I could breathe again. Like I was building something she couldn't touch. Something that was entirely mine. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that my mother had started hearing about Hale Plus Rowan Living. Apparently, people in her social circle were talking about it, the way wealthy people talk about new trends they want to be the first to discover. That new sustainable housing brand, someone had mentioned at a fundraiser. Very tasteful. Very now. My mother, according to my source, had smiled politely and said, "Probably just a passing fad. These eco-trends never last." She had no idea I was behind it. We'd been careful. My name appeared in legal documents and on the company registration, but our public-facing materials emphasized the brand, not the founders. August was the one who did interviews when press reached out. It wasn't hiding exactly. It was strategy. Let the work speak first. Let the reputation build on substance, not controversy. Still, some part of me wondered what she'd think if she knew. If it would matter. If she'd feel even a flicker of regret for what she'd tried to destroy. Our second year was stronger than our first. We expanded our team, hired 3 junior architects, brought on a project manager. I spent my days juggling client calls, reviewing designs, managing budgets. It was the hardest I'd ever worked, and the most fulfilled I'd ever felt. Eli was thriving too. Watching him teach new hires his techniques, seeing his confidence grow as people respected his craft, it reminded me why I'd married him in the first place. Not because he was safe or convenient. 'Cause he was real. Because he built things with his hands and his heart and never apologized for either. My mother called once during that time. I let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message. I didn't call back. Some wounds need distance to heal. Some need silence. I focused on what I could control, showing up every day, doing work I believed in, building something that mattered. If that wasn't enough for her, it was enough for me. The email came on a Friday afternoon. My assistant knocked on my office door, her face strange. Excited maybe. Or nervous. "You need to see this," she said, handing me her tablet. It was an invitation from the Evergreen Board, one of the most influential investment groups in the Pacific Northwest. They were looking for a lead partner on a new sustainable housing initiative, and they wanted Hale Plus Rowan Living to pitch our vision. The meeting was in 3 weeks. I scanned down to the signature line and felt my stomach drop. Board chair. Dr. Sylvia Keats. My assistant was still standing there, waiting for my reaction. I forced a smile. "Tell them we'll be there." After she left, I sat very still, staring at my mother's name on the screen. This was it. The confrontation I'd been avoiding for 2 years. But I wasn't the same person she'd destroyed with a phone call. I'd built something real now. Something she couldn't take away. And I was ready to show her. That night, Eli wanted to reach out to my mother beforehand. "Let her know you're coming," he said. "So it's not a shock." I shook my head. "No. She'll find out when the slides do." August agreed. "The work should speak first," he said. "If she knows ahead of time, she'll spend 3 weeks building a defense. Let her see what you've accomplished without the filter of her expectations." Part of me knew they were right. But another part, the part that still remembered sitting on that kitchen floor surrounded by unpaid bills, wanted her to feel what I'd felt. The shock, the disbelief, the sudden realization that everything she thought she knew was wrong. Was that petty? Maybe. But I'd earned a little pettiness. I'd earned the right to walk into that boardroom not as her disappointing daughter, but as a co-founder of something she'd heard people praise without knowing my name. I'd earned this moment. And I wasn't going to apologize for wanting it. The day of the pitch, I stood in the lobby of the building where I'd once lost everything. The same marble floors. The same cold lighting. But this time I wasn't walking in as someone asking for approval. I was walking in as someone who'd built something worth investing in. August and Eli flanked me, both carrying portfolios and presentation materials. We looked professional, polished, like we belonged. The elevator ride up felt longer than it should have. My heart hammered against my ribs. August glanced at me. "You good?" He nodded. "I'm good." The doors opened. We stepped into a glass-walled conference room where 8 board members sat waiting. And there, at the head of the table, sat my mother. Her face was composed, neutral, professional. She didn't recognize me at first. Why would she? I wasn't supposed to be here. Then our eyes met, and I watched the recognition hit her like a wave. Her mouth opened slightly. Her pen stopped mid-note. For one perfect, frozen moment, my mother had absolutely no idea what to say. I didn't give her time to recover. "Good morning," I said, voice steady. "Thank you for inviting us to present today. I'm Maren Keats Rowan, co-founder of Hale Plus Rowan Living." August clicked the first slide. Our logo filled the screen, clean and confident. Below it, co-founded by Maren Keats Rowan, August Hale, and Eli Rowan. The room was silent. I could feel every board member's eyes moving between the screen, me and my mother. But I didn't look at her. I looked at the investors. And I told them our story. Not the personal one. The professional one. How we'd identified a gap in the market for affordable, sustainable housing that didn't sacrifice design. How our first project sold out in under 2 weeks. How we'd grown revenue by 200% year over year while maintaining our environmental commitments. I spoke for 20 minutes. Eli presented our construction methods. August walked them through architectural innovations. We were flawless. And the entire time my mother sat frozen, her face unreadable. When we finished, the room erupted into questions. Good ones. Interested ones. And I answered every single one without looking at her once. That night I was washing dishes when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. "You made a mistake." My mother's voice. Cold. Controlled. "Partnering with August Hale was a mistake, Maren. He's not stable. His father says he's been erratic, impulsive. You're building your company on sand." Closed my eyes. Same tactics. Different target. "I'm not having this conversation," I said. "You can't run from reality forever," she continued. "You're going to fail, and when you do, don't come crying to me." Hung up. My hands were shaking. Eli appeared in the doorway. "You okay?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from August. "Check your email." I opened my laptop. August had forwarded me a recording. Voicemail. My mother's voice, calling August directly. Saying almost exactly what she'd just said to me. Warning him about me. Calling me unstable, unfocused, a liability. My chest tightened. But then I read August's message below the recording. "Thought you should know what you're up against." But here's what I know. You're the most focused person I've ever worked with. Let's not fight her. Let's just keep building. I stared at the message for a long time. In my mother's world, the right move would be to retaliate, to leak the recording, to publicly embarrass her the way she'd tried to embarrass me. But that wasn't who I wanted to be. I'd spent years trying to prove I was different from her, that success didn't require cruelty. If I played her game, I'd lose even if I won. So I wrote back to August. Delete the recording. We don't need it. Let's just do the work. The next morning I called a team meeting. We're not engaging, I said. No public statements. No defending ourselves. We stay focused on the next project. Let the work speak. Eli squeezed my shoulder. August nodded. And for the first time I felt something shift inside me. I wasn't running from my mother anymore. I wasn't fighting her either. I was just moving forward, building something good, and refusing to let her define my path. That, I realized, was the only victory that mattered. Not revenge. Freedom. 3 weeks later, we were invited to the annual Cascadia Development Gala. It was the kind of event my mother lived for. Speeches, awards, networking over champagne. August insisted we go. It's good for business, he said. I reluctantly agreed. The venue was stunning, all glass and exposed beams, overlooking the waterfront. I wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy. We weren't there to make a scene. We were there to represent our work. Halfway through the evening, the host took the microphone. We're thrilled to announce this year's lead development partner for the Cascadia Green Initiative, he said. My mother sat at a front table, smiling politely. She'd been campaigning for this partnership for months. I knew because people talked. After careful consideration, the host continued, the board has selected Hale plus Rowan Living as our lead partner. The room erupted in applause. I felt Eli's hand find mine. August nudged me forward. And as I stood, as cameras flashed and people clapped, I caught my mother's face. She wasn't smiling anymore. The host handed me the microphone. I hadn't prepared anything. I hadn't expected this. The room quieted, waiting. I glanced at Eli, then at August. Then I looked out at the crowd, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard my mother's voice from years ago. You've wasted your potential. Cleared my throat. Thank you, I said. This partnership means everything to us. Not because of the money or the recognition, but because it proves something we've always believed. That integrity is the only legacy worth inheriting. My eyes found my mother's. She was staring at me, her expression unreadable. Building something meaningful takes time, I continued. It takes patience and people who believe in you even when the world doesn't. I'm grateful to everyone who saw what we were trying to do and gave us a chance. The crowd applauded again. I handed back the microphone and returned to my seat. My hands were trembling. But I felt lighter than I had in years. I hadn't said her name. Hadn't called her out. I'd simply told the truth. And somehow that felt like enough. 2 days later she showed up at my office. No warning. No call. Just walked in like she still had the right. My assistant tried to stop her, but I waved her off. It's fine, I said. My mother stood in my doorway, looking smaller somehow. Older. You did this, she said quietly. All of this. Without me. I leaned back in my chair. No, Mum. Despite you. She flinched. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she stepped inside and closed the door behind her. I thought I was protecting you, she said finally. Her voice cracked just slightly. From making mistakes. From wasting your life on something that wouldn't last. I shook my head. You were protecting yourself. From the embarrassment of having a daughter who didn't fit your plan. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. Sylvia Keats didn't cry. I was wrong, she whispered. About Eli. About your choices. I was wrong. It wasn't an apology. Not really. But it was the closest she'd ever come. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all she had to give. I didn't forgive her right away. Forgiveness isn't something you hand over like a gift. Something you build slowly, piece by piece. But I also didn't shut the door completely. If you want to see what we're building, I said carefully, you can come to the site next week. No speeches. No cameras. Just you. She looked at me surprised. You'd want me there. Shrugged. I don't know yet. But I'm willing to try. The following Tuesday, she showed up at our construction site. She wore practical shoes, something I'd never seen her in. Eli gave her a brief tour, explaining the materials, the design philosophy, the way every choice was intentional. She asked questions, real ones. And for the first time in my life, I saw her actually listen. As we stood watching the crew work, she turned to me. I'm proud of you, Maren, she said quietly. I didn't respond immediately. Proud felt too small for what I'd accomplished. But it was a start. Thank you, I said finally. And I meant it. 6 months later, Eli and I stood at the site of our latest project, a community of 20 eco-homes designed for young families. The sun was just rising, painting everything gold. August joined us, carrying coffee in paper cups. Not bad for a carpenter, a marketing strategist, and an architect nobody believed in, he said, grinning. Eli laughed. I smiled, watching the light spread across the foundations we'd poured. My mother had said I'd never amount to anything after I married for love. That I'd thrown away my potential for a man with splinters on his hands. But standing there, surrounded by something we'd built together, something that would house families and create memories and last long after we were gone, I finally understood the truth. Love wasn't what I'd sacrificed. Love was what made everything else possible. It was the foundation, the blueprint, the thing that held when everything else fell apart. And in the end, it was the only thing that built anything real. I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Not for social media. Just for us. A reminder of the moment we proved that sometimes the best thing you can do is trust yourself, choose love, and build something worth believing in.